Welcome everybody to episode 8 of the Paranormal Perspective. This is BJ Prasad coming to you again once today. So thank you for checking out my YouTube channel. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, The Paranormal Perspective, so we can keep you updated on those new stories as they come in. I am loving those episodes and I am loving those stories I am getting. So please keep sending them in. The more stories you send to me, the more episodes I can get out to you. So definitely keep those stories coming. They are just getting better and better, and I love bringing them to you. So thank you for all the positive feedback, and keep in contact because I want to keep hearing those stories. Definitely keep them coming in. So once again, if you have your own personal experiences to share, you can email me at info@paranormalperspective.com. You can find my website, www.paranormalperspective.com, and you can even find me on Facebook as Paranormal Perspective. If you're in the southern Alberta, specifically Calgary area, you can find my paranormal team. That's my paranormal investigation team here in Calgary. That is the team known as CAPI. So you can find us at www.capi7.ca. And if you have any situations that you would like us to have a look at, then please send us your information to capi7.ca, and we can go through that information and see how best we can help you. So thank you for joining me for today's episode. Looking forward to bringing this one to you today, a local story. So our previous one, in our last episode, coming all the way from the Philippines, this one is actually coming to you today right from within Calgary. This one here is from a woman named Amy. Now, Amy's situation is kind of a bit of a dark tale in the sense of what we're dealing with. Nothing overly scary in the sense of anything bad happening, but it is more of an ominous presence, one might say, that seems to be affecting their family, at least her and her sister, for some time back now, because it starts from when they were children up until it looks to be present day. So getting into that, I will jump to it right now here. Getting into Amy's story, she writes, "Hey BJ, here is my story finally. I grew up sharing a bedroom with my younger sister. She was scared of the dark and always wanted the hallway light on and the bedroom door open at bedtime, whereas I always have loved sleeping in complete darkness, so I couldn't see things when I woke up at night. I used to see a dark figure walking, or maybe more accurately, it almost seemed to be floating, getting closer and closer coming down the hallway towards our room. I would lay awake and hope it wouldn't come, and most nights it didn't. But when it did, I was too scared to call my mom or sister for help. I would just basically freeze and shut my eyes as tight as possible and pretend to be asleep so that it wouldn't come into my room. I was always more afraid of this thing harming my family than it harming me. So I would always check and make sure my sister was still breathing after these visits. Still, being rather young, I was too afraid to go check on the rest of my family, and we'd usually just end up falling asleep. As I got older, this thing seemed to disappear, much to my relief. But years later, when I moved into a new home, I started sensing something again. This time, I never saw it directly, but I would get the same feeling as I did when I was a kid. I would get a terrible feeling of something looming outside my room, and I'd wake up and tell my boyfriend that something was outside the door. This time around, I realized that this thing never came into my room. It never had before, and still wasn't crossing over the doorway now. I got a little braver with this realization. I told it that it wasn't welcome in my life anymore and that it couldn't continue to stay around. I'm not sure if this helped or not. There was one instance where I was sitting in my bed reading, home alone, and there was a bright flash in the corner of the room as if someone had taken a picture. I went over to check it, but there was nothing reflective or a camera or anything like that could have caused the flash. Another time in this same house, I was again home alone and sitting in my makeup room. I had a heavy canvas curtain covering the doorway, and I was sitting at my makeup table with my back towards the curtain. In my mirror, I see the curtain pull to the side as if someone was coming into the room. I turn around to make sure it wasn't just my imagination, and the curtain dropped back as if someone let it go. I ran out of the room to check to see if anyone was there who could have pulled the curtain aside, but I was still home alone. My dogs seemed to sense something as well, as sometimes they'll wake up. My dogs, plural, seem to sense something as well, as sometimes they will wake up and come sit beside me and growl and bare their teeth, as if trying to scare someone away. They don't do this ever with my boyfriend. Whatever this dark figure was from my childhood, it has followed me since, and then showing up at random times in different houses. I have a memory of one time going to the neighbor's house, and the older kids were playing with the Ouija board. I saw this figure a lot before this happened. I don't recall what happened when they were playing with it, but I remember running home crying afterwards and being very upset about this board. I will never participate in one of these ever again because of the very thought of a Ouija board makes my skin crawl. I'm not sure what is going on, but I would love your input. And that is the end of Amy's email. So what we seem to have here now, we have this dark, ominous-looking, looming figure that has been partaking in her life for a very long time, and it has been also part of her sister's life. So the two of them have had experiences with this. Now, one thing I should explain here, I have actually talked to Amy a couple times aside from this email because the story was interesting and the fact that she said that it's still going on. And one thing I do encourage for anyone who, when you send me those emails, definitely keep in contact, because a lot of times these tales aren't just over at the end of an email. There's certain things that might still be going on, so I would definitely love to hear the follow-up because it definitely lets me have more to talk about with you as well. But what we have going on now, again, I've been talking to Amy a little bit about that. And so, as I said, it's not just her and her sister, but it looks to be going back a little ways. Well, it seems to go back down to throughout her family. Not just her, not just her sister, but even before that. So whatever this entity is, it's I don't want to use the term following, but I mean it's there. It's continuing to be around their family, around Amy, around her sister, and around their mom. So that's just some things that she told me aside from that. And it's curious because the one thing that kind of strikes the attention on that one now, this entity, it frightens Amy, it frightens her sister. But their mom is, I guess one might say, has made peace with that it being around. It doesn't feel afraid of it. So it kind of leaves it open to what could this thing possibly be. Because Amy's saying that she is terrified by it, and her sister saying that she is also afraid of it, but the mom saying, no, I'm okay. So could this be the entity of something that's been following their family for a long time? And if so, what would this thing be? Now, there is one more positive possibility. Could this be the entity of a family member who's been following your family around, protecting your family? That would be absolutely fantastic if that were the case. But the thing with that, people have feelings. People get instincts. People have that gut reaction. You know, that thing that says, you know, this is okay or no, I need to get out of here, that fight or flight response. Yes, the mom is okay with it, but who knows how long that their mom has been dealing with it. Maybe she might have just made peace with it because two girls are still terrified of this thing. You're not generally terrified unless there's something to be terrified about, in my experience. Sometimes one might overreact, but she literally says she's afraid of it. After a little while, if something is there and you're learning that it's not anything to be afraid of, you'll stop being afraid. But she's still saying she's afraid of it and doesn't want it around anymore. So kind of makes you wonder, well, maybe it isn't a family member. Maybe it's something else that, for whatever reason, has attached itself to your family. One can only guess, but the fact that it's been following you around for so long, it's clearly stating that it's attached to something having to do with you and your sister. And one can only speculate at this point what that might be. There is that definite opportunity to maybe take a look one time, and luckily, Amy, you're in the Calgary area, so maybe we can talk about trying to see if there's some sort of way we can help you out with Cappy here and to kind of take a look, because that's something we can actually do. But that's, of course, only if you want to contact us and give us all those details through the cappy7.ca page, so we can actually go through everything and see if there's something we can do for you there. But based on just what you're sending me in terms of that information, you have an entity that's not giving you any physical details either. You're seeing this dark figure, the shadow. You're not seeing a face, you're not seeing a person, you're not seeing anything else, you're just seeing this gliding figure. As you said, it was more of a glide or float than a walk. So it's a shadowy thing. Excuse me while I'm taking a little sip there. Now, when we're talking about shadow figures, I don't like to automatically assume that it can be dark. And the reason why I say that is just because it's a shadow figure doesn't mean it's nasty or evil. You have to trust your gut instinct on that one, because sometimes that's just how they manifest. We don't know what causes an entity to manifest itself the way it manifests. We don't know what makes it show up as an orb or a dark figure or a mist or a cloud or a full-bodied apparition. We don't know what makes that decision for them. We don't know how they get their physical form, I guess spiritual form, to appear to people. Could it be that we make that form for them and they're just the energy and consciousness? Or is that some predetermined form? Is there something in their life that makes them have to be that way? One can only guess. Until we get to that point ourselves, we'll never truly know. We can only guess what makes them look or appear as they do when they come that time to appear to us. But that's why I don't like to say automatically that a dark shadow figure means that it's a dark entity. It could be a very benevolent entity. It could be a good thing, but in this case, now we're talking about something that makes you feel scared. Fight or flight response, your gut instinct is telling you, okay, there's something to be afraid of. So yeah, you want to be cautious, because if it's telling you, okay, be afraid, I don't want to tell you not to be afraid, but I also don't want to freak you out either and tell you be terrified. But always remember, first off, anytime, the power to do anything starts with you. Fear is a good way to protect yourself in the sense that it keeps your senses up, makes you aware, helps you understand that you need to be ready to react. But at the same time, you don't want to be so fearful that you don't react. You want to make sure that your body is ready to do what you have to do to stand up, to be firm and steadfast and say, I don't want you here. Now you've done that, but this thing is still apparently attached in the sense that it is not gone yet. It's still part of your life. What is it, I wonder, that is making it stick to you? One thing I would always remind you is that it can't hurt you. Spirits, human entities cannot hurt you, because they are just formless things that are floating energy, right? A human entity can't harm you, but it can scare you, because if you don't know what something is, it's very easy to be afraid. We're terrified of things we don't understand. That's human nature. So just keep in mind that it can't physically harm you, so you don't have to worry about it that way, because a spiritual human entity cannot physically touch you. You might be able to manipulate things here and there, but it won't harm you. And the reason why I'm saying that so firmly is because, truthfully, if it wanted to, after all these years, one would think it would have done so by now. And in the conversations we've had about this so far, you've not once told me about any time where it's actually caused physical harm. It spooked you, but it's never actually touched you or your sister or your mom. It hasn't actually physically touched, made contact in that way to anyone. It's just, for whatever reason, it's there. Now, going into a topic we haven't really touched on that much, in this regard, you have this thing that's been following you guys. Do you by chance, one thing I never actually talked to you about, but do you by chance maybe have any old items from previous family members? Any antique heirlooms, things like that? Something that's been passed down from generation to generation, or maybe more recent, or even not recent at all, but something that might be carrying down from family member to family member. Because there is always that potential that if this thing's following you, it's because not specifically to you, but something that, an heirloom that might be carrying it along your family, that someone's holding on to, that's making it stick to you because it's following that heirloom or that thing. That is one thing I wonder about, is maybe, because it very well could be, maybe it is a family member who is around because it's sticking close to something you have. Not necessarily you or your sister or your mom, but something physical that you might actually own. I wonder if there's anything like that, because then that might get us even closer. If there's an heirloom that it's stuck to, that might make me lean more towards it being maybe a family member who's more of a protective spirit, which that would be a little more positive and take that fear of not knowing what it is away. Other thing to that, though, just to be cautious, just because it's a family heirloom doesn't necessarily mean it's a family that's attached to it. So if it's something really old, there could be any number of reasons why any spiritual energy could attach to something like that. But ultimately, if you own any old objects or anything like that, maybe that might explain why this thing has never left. Because then also like you said, you moved from your old home into a new home, and for the longest time stopped and then started again. Well, when you move, things get mixed up, and then all of a sudden you put this potential old heirloom away, and then all of a sudden you pull it out and boom, guess who shows up again? Could be something like that as well. I'd have to get more details, of course, but I mean, there's always that potential also. But then also, I mean, there's that potential that the more you think about it, the more you talk about it, might give that energy to bring it up. Has anything more emotionally charged happen in your life to cause you to have that extra energy that you might be putting off? In the whole poltergeist situation, it's very well documented that we create those ourselves from that traumatic spiritual energy that our bodies give off during times of heavy stress or emotional trauma. Overall, I think I said trauma twice there, but that kind of thing where we create that energy and then put it out, and then all of a sudden you have this poltergeist activity that's happening. You said that it was able to move a curtain. Have you ever noticed things go missing and then all of a sudden show back up, or you put something somewhere and then all of a sudden it's in another place and you don't know how it got there? Have other things been physically manipulated that you can think of? Definitely maybe try to document those things. What I would even suggest, anytime that you have an incident, record it. So that way you can now start following a map of details. So you write it down, say, okay, on this date, at this time, this happened. Then if it happens, something else happens. On this date, at this time, that happened. So that way you can start seeing if maybe there's a pattern to this. You can always, like I always say with these things too, when I tell someone to document it, how did you feel at the time during the activity? What were you feeling right before the activity happened? Because if it is that you were talking about this spiritual entity and then all of a sudden it showed up, well, that might give you more indication. Or if you were heavily stressed out and feeling very sad and then this thing showed up and that happened on more than one occasion, well, now it's, okay, maybe it's an emotional effect. So things like that could help lead us in the direction to find out what this is. But like I was saying, though, I am very curious as to if this might be some sort of attachment to maybe an object that you might have, something that your family's been carrying around for years and years, and maybe this is just a family member or something that's attached to this object. So definitely keep in contact with me because I want to know what's going on. I definitely do, and then maybe we can do a follow-up episode with your specific story and then see if we can actually get more details or explanation to what's going on, and we can talk about that later as well. But also, like I was saying, if you're ever interested in having this done, then, like I said, you can contact my paranormal investigation team at cappy7.ca or me directly and maybe send me those details so I can send it into my team to see if we can actually take a look at this and set something up and potentially see what might be going on for you. So I am definitely wanting you to follow up with me. Keep in contact with that. We want to know what's going on, and then maybe we can help you out. Thank you very much, Amy, for that experience that you shared with us. And any comments anybody might have, you can share it right on this YouTube channel. You can share it on my Facebook page. But otherwise, like I was saying earlier at the beginning, if you have any of your own paranormal experiences to share, email me at info@paranormalperspective.com. And like I was saying earlier as well, you can find me on Facebook as Paranormal Perspective. Also my website, www.paranormalperspective.com. So keep those stories coming in. Thank you, everyone, for joining me on tonight's episode 8, and I will talk to you all very soon, coming up in episode 9. Have a good night, everybody.